You have the power of choice.
Believe on the Lord Jesus Christ.
Welcome to Life Today Live. I am Randy Robson. We're live here on this Thursday, and we're going to talk about a topic that impacts every single one of us, which is your health. What can you do about it? Obviously, a big topic with COVID. The number one fatal contributor to COVID was comorbidities, meaning you've got other issues going on. And really, I think I'm correct, and my guest can correct me, but I think that's probably the biggest contributor to all illnesses is a lack of health in our bodies. And when a virus hits us or something else hits us, if our bodies aren't ready to handle it, it can be devastating. So we're going to have a good conversation. My guest today is Ginny Dent Brant, and this is her latest book. It's called Unleash Your God-Given Healing. And we're talking about health and nutrition here because God made our bodies to heal themselves. She has a fascinating story of overcoming one of the most frightening words in the English language, I think. And so I'm looking forward to it. Chat is open, by the way. I invite you guys to be a part of the conversations, your questions, your comments. If you haven't subscribed to Life Today TV, I encourage you to do it now and hit share. We're early in the interview, so you caught us early. Good time to hit share. Ginny Dent Brant, great to have you on Life Today Live.
Thanks, Randy. It's great to be here from South Carolina.
Beautiful state, actually. Let's get right into your story. Well, actually, you know what? Before we get into your story, I'd love to hear a little bit of your background because you actually have a pretty prestigious career, and I'd like to just kind of give people a sense of who you are before we hear about your really tough battle.
Well, I'll tell you, I did grow up in the halls of power of Washington, D.C., because my father, Harry Dent, served as senator and 3 presidents. And so I gleaned a lot from that. But it was at age 16 in Washington that I also started going to Young Life. And that's when I gave my life to Jesus Christ, became a Christian, and began growing in ways my parents, especially my father, did not understand. So now the 16-year-old is starting to have conversations with her father, who is a political aide to President Nixon, who's flying the world and doing all these prestigious things. And he's thinking I'm drinking, Randy, too much of the Kool-Aid, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
So then Watergate comes our way, and he prepares me that at 16 years old, he may be turning over the reins of my 10-year-old brother and my mother, who at that point was severely depressed, because he may be going to prison because the ship was going down and everyone was going with it.
Wow.
And so that's when I told him, Dad, we're going to pray about this. God is more powerful. And if you pray to God, he will prove you to be right if you are innocent. Well, he didn't believe me at first. But as time went on, he started listening to some of the things I was saying. And when he was one of 65 men who did not go to prison in the Watergate trials, he looked at me and he said, your prayers worked. And that was the beginning of the Lord working in his heart. So after 25 years in politics, my father gave his life to Jesus Christ and spent 25 years in ministry, literally all over the world.
Oh my goodness. I didn't even realize all that. Now that took you places, did it not?
Well, it certainly did because of my dad's ministry in Romania, but I was on the Foreign Mission Board of the Southern Baptist Convention as a trustee. So I've been to China, I've been to Romania, I've been to Gaza, I've been to Yemen, I've been to some pretty interesting countries, including the Czech Republic, but all the countries I've been to were countries who did not have freedom because of their form of government. And so I'm used to being with people who are in the underground church, not here in America, but in China, in the Middle East, and in Romania.
That I've seen a lot of those places too, actually, and I'll tell you what, seeing the underground church in East Berlin when it was still East Berlin was a very moving thing. So that deep faith obviously was a major factor when you hit your health crisis. Tell us about that.
It certainly was. Randy, I knew from previous experiences that when everything goes awry, you look to God for help. And as soon as I got that cancer diagnosis, I was devastated. I was shocked. But my husband and I, he laid his hands on me and prayed for me and asked God to guide us and to provide healing. And in looking back, the Lord more than answered our prayers. He not only provided healing, he provided answers and an open door for me to be able to help other people to prevent cancer, to get through the journey. And those people like me who are cancer survivors, the last thing you want is for that cancer to come back. So I'm able to help people to make their chances better that that cancer won't come back with lifestyle changes.
And here we get to it. This is the part that people don't always like to hear about because much, not all, but much of what ravages our bodies and even kills us, we bring on ourselves. Do we not?
Yes, Randy, and that is what I found from my research. It was hard for me to discover, but my research started when my dad went downhill with Alzheimer's. And I went to the Alzheimer's conventions and listened to the doctor's lecture and did much research then, only to find out that it's 90% a lifestyle disease. Most of our chronic diseases, cancers, most of these things, it's largely what we are doing to ourselves. And so I had to take a deep look within myself and figure out what I needed to change. First of all, I wanted to find out what caused my cancer, because if I don't know what caused it, how can I keep it from coming back? Number two, what can I do to be part of the cure? My doctor has his job or her job, right? And those are very important jobs. But I also must be part of the cure. And a lot of that cure on my part is coming through lifestyle changes.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about those lifestyle changes, but walk us a little bit through your personal experience. What year was it that you got your cancer diagnosis?
I was diagnosed in 2015, in April of 2015.
Okay. And so what did you do at that point?
At that point, I got a second opinion because I was told I was stage 4, aggressive, without much hope to live.
Wow.
They could only extend my life. And so I dug deeper. I recommend everyone get a second opinion because your insurance company pays for it. So I flew to Chicago, went to Cancer Treatment Centers of America to get my second opinion. And they said, we don't know that you're stage 4 yet. We do confirm everything else your hospital said, but we don't know that it is stage 4 yet. And that was the most hope I had heard up to that point. But getting that second opinion and knowing that they were going to put a naturopathic doctor and a nutritionist on my case made me feel so much better that I could be part of the cure. And I researched beyond what they provided for me and added other things as well. So I just delved into the research so I could figure out again how I can be part of the cure.
Did you undergo any kind of chemo or surgery?
I had 5 surgeries. I had chemotherapy for a year, and my doctors told me later, I didn't realize this, Randy, but my chemo regimen was the worst known to mankind for the longest amount of time. But the way in which I went through it made a huge difference in my coming out on the other side, first of all, cancer-free, and number 2, not disabled and not having problems that would last for a lifetime or chronic pain. And I'm so grateful to the Lord that he opened the doors for me to, see information. Some of the things I found out by the providence of God. There's no way I could have figured that out. And so I realized how powerful lifestyle changes can be in a cancer prognosis. Would I have made it without my doctors and all the things they did for me? Possibly, probably not. But when you work with your doctor to be the best cancer patient you can be, and that includes using your faith, Randy, to manage your emotions, because cancer is a roller coaster ride.
Yeah, you mentioned Cancer Centers of America. One of them that my sister went to is in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and it is the old City of Faith that Oral Roberts built. I went to Oral Roberts University, and I remember him talking about bringing science and faith together, training doctors who not only were professionals in understanding the human body, but who would pray with their patients. And I know that CCA does that as well. You mentioned that you learned some things from God. I'm curious, without giving away the entire book, because people that really are interested in this should pick up the book. This is it, Unleash Your God-Given Healing. But can you give us maybe one example of what you feel like God spoke to you during this time?
My husband and I were avid walkers. And from the first moment I was diagnosed with cancer, we decided to keep walking to get through the stress of what we were going to go through. I actually walked 2 miles after my first and second surgery. The nurse told me, I don't think you can do that when I first started out, but there were all these tubes I wanted removed. And I was doing it again to relieve stress. And all the tubes that my husband was supposed to babysit for a few weeks were all removed before I left the hospital. The doctor said I promoted healing in my body 15 different ways. Now, I didn't know I was going to do that. I was getting up to walk to relieve stress. Then it came time for the big bad bear, what I didn't want, chemotherapy. And I made the commitment to walk 2 miles before and after chemotherapy and every day in between. Now, I had an 8-hour chemo regimen with 4 different chemicals, and that's hard to get through. But after I finished the cancer journey and I finished with flying colors and my blood works back within normal levels within 6 weeks instead of 2 to 5 years, the doctors are calling me their rock star cancer patient. It was about a year later, research came out from Australia showing that exercise is the best thing a cancer patient can do through every part of treatment, especially chemotherapy. Then about a year or two later, MD Anderson has a study with mice showing that the mice who had a daily exercise routine did better with the chemotherapy.
Okay.
Now, I didn't know that when I did the exercise. That was something that research later proved. I did it out of instinct. We said, Lord, guide us. And he was guiding us. And I didn't realize all the things I was doing for your body, but exercise enhances every system in your body. And Randy, there's one system in your body that only works when you move. That's why the sedentary lifestyle is such a killer. And that's your lymphatic system, which is an important part of your immune system. And during chemotherapy, you want that lymphatic system collecting all those toxins and all those cancer cells and all that debris and moving it out of your system. And if you're sedentary, it's going to recirculate and make you sick and send you into sepsis and possibly death. Wow. So that's what they're now saying to cancer patients: move, do what you can when you can. If you don't have the energy and the balance, they're not going to tell you to move because you would fall and hurt yourself. But you do what you can when you can. And if you're an active walker before, then you can easily continue that walking afterwards. Or if you're not, you can build up to it slowly. Even if you have to have the help of your husband, spouse, or, parents to help you walk. I tell cancer patients, get up out of that bed, move, because movement is key to life and your body working as God intended.
I can't help but wonder what does an exercise regimen for a mouse look like? But that's really not the important thing.
It's that wheel, the squeaky wheel that they go around.
Okay, so it's the mouse treadmill. So here's a serious question now, because I mean, especially with that kind of chemo regimen, but anytime you're sick, anytime you're not feeling well, you don't feel like getting up and exercising. There had to be days where you thought, I could take a day off. Or did you ever even have that thought?
I actually didn't.
You're that committed.
The fact that I kept moving and was proactive about hydrating and all the things that I did, I did not feel sick. I did not feel terrible. during chemotherapy. And I think it's the way that I approached it. Sometimes it's nothing that I did, but I do think the things that I put into play and some of the things the naturopathic doctors told me to do, like hydrating, eating nutrient dense foods. I mean, all these things helped so that I wouldn't get in such an emaciated state. Yeah. And I never really got, I mean, honestly, I lost every hair on my head. I was bald as a bat. My husband would get up every morning and tell me I was still the most beautiful woman east of the Mississippi River. And really, I didn't look too hot. But, you know, those encouraging words were important at a very difficult time. But, you know, Randy, using your faith to manage your emotions, I learned so much about how positive emotions that the Bible talks about.
Yeah.
Enhance our immune system and help it to heal. And negative emotions, fear and worry, which are, you know, normal in a cancer journey, all they do is suppress our immune system. Once you realize that, you understand what Paul was talking about in Philippians 4:6-8, when he said, in the midst of your trials, first of all, pray about everything. Second of all, give thanks in everything, knowing God's going to use it for his kingdom and for your good. And number 3, don't look at all the negative circumstances around you. If I had concentrated on that, I would have gone under. Keep your mind focused on the good things. All these things promote healing in the body. So Paul is giving us more wisdom than now medical science backs up what he said so many years ago.
That's exactly where I was going, because a lot of times we read things in Scripture and we think it's pie in the sky or it just doesn't make sense. But then I've said this many times. I view science as the revelation of God's creation to mankind. In other words, what you're saying, that the emotions actually they can affect the body. I mean, it's just true, and science now backs that up. So, just on a daily basis, you had to hear the bad news because you're talking to doctors, and their job is to tell you everything, just tell you the straight truth, right? You know that cancer kills people. So this is not good news. Is there anything in particular? I mean, were you just reading scripture? Were you singing songs? What would you do to balance the inevitable bad news that has to come your way while you're dealing with cancer on a kind of routine basis? Because I know there's some people out there watching right now who are struggling health-wise and struggling with the emotions, and they're going, is there anything I can actually do?
Well, I did have to do what Paul said in Philippians. I prayed every day. I meditated on the words in the Bible, the encouraging words. And, one of the things I had to face up front was, yes, I realized this could be my ticket to heaven. When I got my diagnosis, it was 4 months after my mother had died of breast cancer. And it was her ticket to heaven. And so I realized, I'm here to glorify God. I've had a wonderful life. And if this cancer takes me to heaven, then I'm going to go out praising him and blessing everyone else along the way. And that was my attitude. And I'm seeing that in some cancer patients now that have been told there's nothing more we can do. And what I've said to them is, that's God telling you your ticket to heaven is coming soon, And so for the Christian, there's still a positive light. And that is our time to get to heaven is soon. And so for the Christian, those are the kind of things you have to dwell on. Am I going to go through this? I never once thought to blame God. I questioned, but I didn't blame him. I kept saying, Lord, what have I done that allowed this to happen in my body? And the more I looked, the more I realized some things were not my fault, but some things definitely were my fault, and I needed to correct them. Because God, as you said at the very beginning, made us with a wonderful, amazing body that heals itself. But we have to do the right things for it to work as God intended.
This is an interesting thing. It's an interesting tension, I think, in the fact that we all die. and our bodies are designed to heal themselves, but they're also designed to not last forever. Our spirit is, and that's the good news, like you say, for the Christian. And instead of, did you have to learn to not fear death, or was that something that you had always kind of the position you'd always been at? Because it forces you to deal with mortality, I think, even while we're asking for more time.
I mean,
Like you
it
said.
certainly does. You're staring death in the face, and every day I was signing papers that said side effects, including death. And I kind of got to the point where my husband and I would look at that, and the first time we signed it, he was right over my shoulder. We were it was very difficult, and it got to the point we were kind of laughing when we signed it. Oh, well, come what may, we're going to walk in this light, and we're going to do everything we can to beat this cancer. And I realized I could die. And I was more afraid, Randy, not of dying, but of the process of dying and the pain and the things that might come, in that in-between time that cancer could bring. That concerned me the most. And fortunately, I did not have to deal with any of that. Now, I also know, as they told me at the cancer center, with an aggressive cancer, it can come back. And when it does, it comes back with a vengeance. Mm-hmm. And so, my philosophy now is every day is a gift. So every day I get to play with my grandchildren and minister for the Lord and speak and sing and do all these things. It's just God's gift to me. And, that may be up and my cancer may come back. But, I don't sit around fearing it because fear is only going to make it come back sooner. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's why Paul tells us to dwell on the good things and live each day to the fullest. And our job is to serve God. We don't know how long we'll be on this earth. I certainly don't know, but I do believe that every day is a gift that I have left for me to serve him. And right now I'm batting 7 years. I could have died 7 years ago and I'm still here.
Yeah. And, the reality is we should all look at life that way because you can be completely healthy. I mean, yesterday on my way home from work, there was an accident about a mile ahead of me, and I believe it was a fatality accident, shut down the freeway. We don't know. To live each day as a gift from God that we give back to him really is the right way for anybody, whether you've got that diagnosis or not. And so that's healthy. I want to talk about some of the practical nutritional things that you may have done, because we know that what we put into our bodies does more damage than pretty much anything. But I want to show people your website first, and this is it. It's GinnyBrant.com, and Ginny with a G. You can see how it's spelled at the top. So it's simply GinnyBrant.com. I did put that in the chat for you guys who are watching the chat. And then her book is right here. It is called Unleash Your God-Given Healing. And this is out now, right? I didn't check the date on this one. This is available for anybody right now.
It's written with an oncologist and famous medical researcher that has published papers and spoken all over the world. And he is on the cutting edge of cancer, practiced for 55 years.
And I'm sorry, did you write it with him? Is that what you said?
He was the commentator.
Oh, okay.
At the bottom, Dr. Robert Elliott, one of God's gifts to the medical world, just a dedicated Christian doctor.
And I love that. Now, okay, so let's talk about some of the nutrition real quick, and we've still got a good 5-6 minutes, because we know this. I mean, we all know this. This is not a big surprise, and then we go grab our bag of chips and sit down on the couch. Was there anything that you changed with your diagnosis? Anything that you do now to prevent it from coming back?
Absolutely. Food as medicine is absolutely powerful. And so I learned from my dad's journey with Alzheimer's to increase my fruits and vegetables. So my husband and I were up to 5 a day. Now we're up to 10 to 13 fruits and vegetables, nuts, seeds, herbs, and spices. All of these things are God's gift to us. And the plant kingdom that God gave us, all of those plants contain antioxidants and phytochemicals, which both fight cancer. So every plant in God's kingdom that he gave to Adam and Eve were gifts that promote healing in the body. But I want to mention a few that are extremely powerful. And at the top of my list would be blueberries.
Mm-hmm.
I eat blueberries every single day because they prevent dementia, which my father died from, and they prevent cancer, and they build your immune system, and they're good for your heart. I mean, you can't lose, right? And so cruciferous vegetables, all of the cruciferous vegetable family contains sulforaphane, which it has cancer fighting potential. So your broccoli, your Brussels sprouts, your kale, all of these things are great vegetables to include often, plus garlic, onions. But the standard American diet, the processed food, the fried food, all of these things are what's tearing down our system instead of building it up. So I had to get away from the standard American diet, you know, the burgers and the French fries and the milkshakes and the, you know, all these things with high sugar.
And okay, so I cut out pretty much all fried food, all deep fried food years ago. But I don't know that my diet is that fabulous right now. How far do you have to go, really? I mean, do I need to go all organic, all uncooked, raw? I mean, really?
Well, raw is important, Randy, and organic is important, but you don't have to go all organic because there's lists in my book of the fruits and vegetables that don't carry a high pesticide residue for some reason. Huh. But I will tell you that high levels of glyphosate and Agent Orange pesticide were found in my body and drove my cancer. I had no risk factors for my cancer, and believe it or not, the genetic test showed nothing either. And that's why I kept looking and digging deeper. And so I do eat organic in the fruits and vegetables that do matter because I cannot afford to let that pesticide residue build up in my body again because they contain endocrine disrupting hormones, and I had an estrogen-fed cancer. Even men are getting breast cancer, not as many as women, but 90% of the men getting breast cancer are getting estrogen fed when God didn't make them to have too much estrogen. So the estrogen is not just coming within our body, it's coming from the outside in through what we eat, through what we put on our skin, through what we drink, through what we breathe. And so we've got to lower our toxic load. And so I had to do that through eating and through what I put on my skin and what I use at home on an everyday basis. And the book details, you know, things you can use instead. It even goes through the typical day of a woman and the 75 chemicals that she comes in contact that she comes in, you know, yeah. Those chemicals, just a typical day, 75 chemicals a woman comes in contact with. Now that's just too many. And so we have to look at ways to reduce those chemicals we're coming in contact with.
All great practical advice, and you definitely should pick up the book if this is something that you're dealing with, especially. But even if you just want to reduce your chemical load, I find that concept right there very interesting.
It affects everything from diabetes, heart disease, dementia. All these things have a tie-in with too much chemical load. And so you want your immune system to work as God designed. And when it's distracted with too many chemicals, your immune system can be just, you know, suppressed. We don't want that. Your immune system is key to everything, even having not such a bad case of COVID-19. You know, because as you said in the beginning, comorbidities, you know, you're going to have a worse case. But if you get your toxic load down, you eat differently, you move, you hydrate, you're going to do better if you get COVID-19.
So we have to be careful with medical claims, but it just makes common sense that if you're taking care of your body, you're going to be able to fight a virus better. If you've got the proper vitamins, nutrition, you're hydrating, like you said, you're exercising, you're better built. You know, it's like you may get in a car wreck, but if you're in a tiny little poorly built car versus a sturdy SUV, you're going to be better off. It doesn't prevent you from getting in the car wreck, but your survival chances are way higher. So I hear that as what you're saying. I'm curious if you have any opinion quickly on why some of the mainstream medical community give such pushback to the nutraceutical, the healthy lifestyle kind of stuff. It's not that they deny it entirely, but they seem to want to medicate with manufactured pharmaceuticals first, and sometimes they don't even mention the other. Do you have any opinion on that?
Well, first of all, most of the doctors that I see today were not trained in nutrition in medical school. They might have gotten 2, 3, 4 hours at the most. Today's doctors are getting more training.
Good.
And part of the problem, I hate to say it, Randy, is us. We go to the doctor and expect them to, we have high cholesterol, we have heart problems, and we go to them expecting them to cure it.
Yeah.
Instead of, do we ever ask the doctor, what can I do to lower my cholesterol? What can I do to make my body healthy? And sometimes when we do ask and they tell us, we don't do it. So sometimes it's not the doctor, it's just simply us. So I think more doctors are on board than you realize. Some of them get tired of telling their patients things and then they don't listen anyway. So it's not always the doctors. The doctors I know are onto a lot of this stuff and they are promoting it. It's the patients who are not listening. So it kind of goes both ways.
You know what? I think you're probably absolutely right. A friend of mine, former roommate of mine from college, is a doctor, and he said, you'd be surprised how many people come in, they want this particular thing because they think it'll cure them, and I'm like, no, it won't. And they're like, no, I have to have that. And they're like, fine, because it won't hurt them really. And he goes, the dirty little secret is that most people get better because their bodies are built for them to get better. And so that's kind of a lot of what I hear you saying. Hey, let's put our bodies in the best position to do what God made it to do, which is to take care of itself, to heal itself. And let's take what God has given us and not do the shortcut thing and expect the medical community to fix what we've broken. So.
Because most of those medications do have side effects, and sometimes it's worth the side effects because they save our lives, especially in emergency. But I look at it this way. You don't want to take any medication that you can remedy the situation with lifestyle changes.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt about that. I don't like taking any kind of medication anyway, but I'm glad that we have them because when you need them, they're really great. All right. Before I let you go, Ginny, one more thing. Tell us about your blog and what you do on your website that people can jump into right now.
Okay. On my blog at GinnyDentBrant.com, they can sign up for my cancer and wellness prevention blog. I post weekly. I've done several articles on natural immunity during COVID-19, pointing to all the research. When I talk about something, I'll give you the link to the research where I found that. So sometimes there's 5, 6, 7 links to different research. So I'm constantly talking about new things coming up with cancer, new things coming up with health, new discoveries. That, some of these things are in the book. Some of these things came out since I wrote the book. So I'm keeping people updated. So please sign up for that cancer wellness prevention blog. It's very valuable. And
that is at GinnyBrant.com. Again, in the chat, but if you're not seeing the chat, it's GINNYBRANT, GinnyBrant.com. Ginny, thank you. Bless you in your continued journey, and thank you for directing your life to helping others. You could have just reveled in your own health and enjoyed your grandkids, but I appreciate the fact that you're going out and you're on a mission to help others as well. So thank you.
I definitely am. Thank you for having me, Randy, to share my message.
Appreciate you guys out there watching. You know somebody that may be struggling with health. Hit a little share. Tag them in it and say, hey, you need to watch this. This will help you. And then come back tomorrow. We've got more on Life Today Live. Tomorrow I have David A.R. White. There's a new movie coming out. It's God's Not Dead, We the People. So if you like those movies, you're going to love tomorrow's interview. And come back next week. More great interviews going on right here on Life Today Live. Subscribe, follow, hit like, hit share. We'll see you again next time right here on Life Today Live.
In spite of our rebellion.